plan is to put a 1949 Chev Fleetline and an '06 Cadillac CTS together into one car, keeping the best of both. At this point, we've got the two bodies off, the two bottoms and the parts thrown away that need to be thrown away. So the 49 Chev has a wheelbase of 115 inches and the Cadillac has a wheelbase of 113.4 inches. So you got 1.6 inches too short, the Cadillac. But a lot of guys that build these 49 to 54 Chevs say that if you're putting like an independent front suspension in, you should put it back about ½ an inch from where the original, spindle center line is, because it looks better in the fender wells, the way the fenders are. So I thought, okay, so now I only need about an inch. Cut this Cadillac right across the middle, in the floor, and put an inch strip in, and that should solve it, right? So because there's no frame, this is going to be pretty easy. I put a couple of 2-inch angle iron strips underneath the car, bolted to the rear subframe and the front subframe to kind of hold the whole thing together. And then I put holes in the front part. I think I got, just 3 screws in each side and a bolt at the front. And I put a double set of holes 1 inch apart so that when I cut across this body, I can slide it back an inch until those other holes line up, put those screws back in, and then I've got it exactly an inch, no measuring required. So that was the trick, and yeah, it worked really, really good. So the other things you have to extend, obviously, because there's more parts to the car than just the floor. The emergency brake cable is going to have to extend an inch. I got a way to do that. I just make a little joint thing that adds an inch to where the cable actually joins itself already. The drive shaft is going to be probably one of the biggest challenges, although I love doing drive shafts. I've done dozens of them right on my workbench. Chop saw, boom. Shortening them is real easy. Making them longer is a little bit tougher. This one's got to add an inch. I don't think I've ever had to make one longer before. I bought a new drive shaft and I've got the old drive shaft, and out of the two I'll be able to make one that's an inch longer. And I'll show you how to do that, because that's a big ticket item right there. And then the gas lines and the brake lines, they all feed together underneath the Cadillac. They run down this little channel and then they go crossways. And where they go crossways is right where I cut the floor. So all you have to do is pull it apart an inch and those lines just bend a bit. They're fine. You've got to brace underneath and on the sides of the car, so that in such a way that when you cut all the way across the floor, and you can slide the back end of the car back an inch, that the whole thing isn't going to fall into two pieces, right?
The idea of the laser level is that if I can make a perfectly straight line across this floor, over the humps and through the dips, then I can cut a 1 inch wide strip of steel, like just a ribbon of steel, and for filler, and it'll fit right in there. One thing you got to make sure you do is clear the paint off before you put your line on there. If you're trying to weld over paint, it's a real stinky mess and doesn't do a good job. Zip disc, make sure of what's underneath first. I actually covered the brake lines and the fuel lines with another plate of steel so that I wouldn't accidentally cut them. Now I've got my line straight across the car, split it apart. My wife helped me pull it apart. Put in the ribbon of 20 gauge because it helps if you've got something a bit heavier to weld to. Clamped it to make it flush with these little clamps straight out of China, and tacking it as we go. Tacking, tacking, tacking all the way across. And again, you want to be careful of what's underneath or what's on top. There's wires that can melt and all kinds of stuff. So just pay attention, look it over really well, and then go to work.
That's it, done. And I still got my IFS front and back. Everything, it's all great. The other cool thing about the Cadillac that I'm looking forward to, and this might be the difficult part, is to stuff all of the stuff that's on the dash, on the firewall of the Cadillac, into the 49 Chev. I mean, including the heater, the defrosters, and especially the air conditioning. Because I don't have any car with air conditioning, any of the ones I built. And so we're gonna work on that and work on the front fenders. Now, it's interesting because the towers for the struts on the front come right up even with the top of the engine. Of course, these old Chevys, they had the coil springs way down underneath, the independent coil springs. Interesting that the 49 to 54 Chev front suspension is actually the same as the original Corvette front suspension. The other thing, I have to lengthen the exhaust system, right, 1 inch. But I'm going to chuck the catalytic converters anyway and put a dummy pipe in there. So all I'll do is make those 1 inch longer than the catalytic converters. Problem solved. And that's it. That's all there was to stretching this thing. Very, very simple and very easy. One more thing. Every inch really does matter. I could have probably just stuck those two cars together, forget about extending the wheelbase on the Cadillac, and nobody'd know, maybe put fender skirts on, fudge it in a little here or there. Yeah, but I would know it, right? If I put another 100,000 miles on the car, it's vivid in my imagination all the way about that 1 inch strip that goes right across the bottom of that floor and the inch longer drive shaft and emergency brake cable and catalytic converters and all the things that goes into that. So give me an inch, give me that inch, and I'll take it all the way to town. That'll be a complete job worth being proud of. Because see, the end result of your project is obviously made up of all the little details that come along on the way. And so if you start skimping here and, a shortcut there and not doing a good job here, you're not going to be happy with the end result. And the opposite of that is to be a perfectionist. And of course, that'll drive yourself crazy and you very seldom get anything done. Now, I like doing a good job and I like to be proud of it. And so I'll do my very best when it comes to whatever job. And I like doing it all too. I mean, if I don't know how to do it, I want to learn it. And in this project, we're going to go through some of the tools that you can make to actually be able to fabricate and to do some of the things that you need to do to complete your project. But then there's the other guys who say, well, I didn't do a real good job on this. I should have made that car 1 inch longer. And, well, the paint is, I did my best, but it's a lot of blemishes. You're the only guy that knows about the blemishes. And, some of the welding's not that good. Why ain't right in your car then? Give me an inch and let's take it all the way to town. All right, that wraps it up for today. And we're going to have to sleep on a few things here.